And we are live. Thank you so much, Sebastian, for being here. How are you doing?
All great, thank you.
Amazing. Let me just double check. It's on my profile. Yes. Okay. So you should be tagged as well. So you should have received the notification. Super.
All right.
Cool. Thanks again for being here and for taking the time. It's great to have you. It's a very exciting time for Sandbox. And yeah, like if you want to introduce yourself to the audience, that would be amazing.
Of course. So for those of you who are not familiar, my name is Sebastian. I'm the COO and co-founder of Sandbox. I'm also the president of the Blockchain Game Alliance. So really involved within the ecosystem and everything related to blockchain gaming and NFTs for more than 3 years now and pushing forward the industry. The Sandbox, it's a gaming virtual world that enables creators to make 3D assets and game experience, monetize them through the use of NFTs as well as our utility token Sand. We have major partners already on the platform that include Atari, Roller Coaster Tycoon, Shaun the Sheep, Care Bears, the Smurf as well. We have an amazing community, hundreds of thousands of creators and members who are contributing on daily basis to add amazing content on the shop, to work on game experience that will be available when we launch to the public soon. So yeah, that's pretty much what Sandbox is about. We sure get deeper into the topic through the question, but that's the short introduction.
Okay, cool, perfect. So I guess for somebody like me who knows very little about gaming and is not a gamer at all, and I may other people like myself in the audience, can you explain exactly what Sandbox does and also, you know, how it came about for you as well, to co-found it, to found the Sandbox?
Right. Okay. So, well, Sandbox has been it's a platform now where you have several tools, creation tools. The first one is NFT maker called VoxEdit, where you can make 3D model in voxel. Voxel are like 3D blocks, pixels turned into 3D. You can combine them to make any sort of shapes. Those shapes can be also animated, and you can publish those creation on the marketplace where other users can start buying them from you, exchanging them. So you can sell your content, you can monetize it. But it has also a utility. It's not just here purely for aesthetic, it's all or collecting. It's also here to be used with a game maker. And that game maker is the second tool of the platform that enables anyone to create game without any programming knowledge. So just drag and drop those 3D assets, NFTs into the game maker. They come with behavior. So a bird can fly, an enemy can attack you automatically, etc. So then you can create your experiences, your games very easily. You'll be able to publish them on your lands. So that's the third main component in the Sandbox platform. Lands, we are a virtual world with a map composed of 464 lands in total that we started to sell to users about a year ago. About 45% of that map has been sold to date. And owning a land in the Sandbox virtual world is essentially the gateway to monetization on the platform, since you can publish your game that other users will be able to access, play, and pay content, pay access, or pay the content, or just play for free, depending on how you choose it as a creator, or rent it to another creator, because each land has a location on the map. Each land is an NFT. And as such, there are some locations which can be closer to specific partners, specific brands, specific landmarks in our virtual world. And that could be more interesting because, well, you want to be within that neighborhood that has this sport brand, this celebrity, this gaming. So in a way, it's like reproducing a world, a new nation where users own the land. Users can develop businesses, games here, and experiences on top of their land. Users own the assets and participate actively in the economy of that world. And users have a voice via governance, so they can take decision, vote on decision using the token and participating in the DAO or the future of the virtual world.
Amazing. Okay. And I guess my next question is more towards like the gaming industry. So obviously, like I guess the big industry that exploded with NFTs has been art. And I think I'm going to touch on that a little bit later because I know you're also a great art collector. So I want to know a little bit more about that. But with the gaming industry, where is it at in terms of like this space? And what are your thoughts about this?
Well, the gaming industry is still very much focused on free to play as a business model into closed ecosystem. The Sandbox I was mentioning has been out there for over a decade now. So it's a franchise that started in 2011 on mobile as a 2D game where creators were making content. They were contributing to the success of the platform. Largely, we had over 40 million installs. We had at peak 1 million active users who uploaded 70 million creations. That's an amazing number. And without all that content the users had made, the game wouldn't have been such a success. And yet, users were spending in the game, but we had no way to reward the users for all the contribution. Besides Sandbox, actually, the vast majority of games are closed ecosystem where the users are retained. They cannot leave the platform. The assets, the virtual item, the virtual currency you buy in those games as well is retained. So you spend real money to acquire an item, but you cannot take it out of the game when you leave that game, when you stop playing, or even when the game stops to exist. And we've seen even recently in the news, we have Roblox who raised about $40 billion on its recent IPO. Those are still closed ecosystem where the content made by the users doesn't belong to them. The asset they buy do not belong to them. They cannot exchange it. They cannot send it to other users. They cannot monetize it the way they want. So that's essentially the revolution of bringing digital asset as NFTs on the blockchain. That includes art, that includes game assets, that include credit card, that includes virtual land as well as part of this digitalization. And it's an essential piece, I think, to build the economy, the future economy of the metaverse, which is built and fueled by the NFT, fueled by the virtual world where users are back in control. They are back in the ownership of their asset. They receive reward for the value. They contribute to the growth of those virtual worlds, those games. They receive value for supporting the artist when they buy crypto art, typically, as we can see with Beeple example. But Beeple has been more like making it known to the world what some artists have been already doing for years on platforms like Super Rare, Non-Origin, or Rarible. And it's just accelerating now in an incredible manner where a lot of artists are being empowered and fans get closer connected to the artist to get what they want from them without all the intermediary, the complication, the middle management. And that's very beautiful what's happening here. It's very powerful as well. And it's setting, I think it's a great moment in history. Like, we're setting the beginning of the future of the digital economy here.
Yeah, absolutely. And what obviously you talked about like rewards and get like empowering creators, but also users in the same way. So I guess like it comes also in play like social tokens, and I know that Sandbox has Sand, which is your social token. So like just wanting to get your thoughts on, first of all, what are social tokens, explained by you, because I'm sure you can explain it really well. And what do you see the future of these social tokens as well?
Well, I think social token is just a subcategory of token, but by nature, all token are community driven. Like, you're part of a community of other users who also own that token, and you're part of contributing to the service, the DApp, even the person, the individual who's using this token to power his community. And that's, I think, essential. In Sandbox, Sand token are powering the Sandbox platform and the Sandbox ecosystem to reward players, creators, contributor, etc. Social tokens are supported by individuals or DAOs that can be buying on, that can be curating NFTs and then distributing the rewards of those NFT ownership to their members. So there's various benefits to owning a social token as well. It really depends on which one you follow and what are the incentives for the community, as well as for, well, the creator or the influencer, or, well, the community that's leading that token as well.
Okay, and you touched on DAOs. I think that's something that I personally have been trying to, look into like a little bit more. I recently asked, if you had to explain like DAOs to like my mom, for example, who doesn't really, understand a lot about this world. And to be honest, I'm still learning as well. So what are DAOs? And also, what do you think about DAOs in the whole sense of the ecosystem? Because they can be anything really, as you said, from like creators to gaming to NFTs. So yeah.
Well, I would say at the general level, a DAO is a community that is going to participate in decision, express a vote in decision. Those decisions can relate toward acquiring asset, toward governance, toward governance of a protocol, governance into but purchasing NFTs, governance into how should be a certain DApp, the roadmap of it should be defined, etc. It's essentially a council of users who are expressing their votes and hence have an interest into the future and the decision, the outcome of the decision behind. And they are essential because they contribute to really decentralizing that. Instead of having just one company or having just a few people that run a service, an application, a protocol, or a community, you're giving the opportunity to all the token holders of that community to participate in the decision. Now, it's a very powerful concept that expresses the full decentralization. The implementation of it, it's still, I think, in the beginning, because there's technical constraints. Sometimes not everyone express a vote. So how do you define how decision can be made? And that's why I think there's several projects that are building DAOs or supporting DAOs to support those community and decision behind, Aragorn and a few others.
Yeah. And in your view, will DAOs become, I guess, even, a consequence of, a consequence, or, what is the evolvement as well of this space, the NFT, and in general, the metaverse? Yeah.
I think DAOs will play an important role in running the metaverse in a fully decentralized manner. However, not everyone wants to be voting or taking decisions. So there will form some DAOs where people can, for example, delegate that vote to other users because they might not be interested into voting into every single thing of the platform, or every single matter might not be as important to require the commitment of users to follow on an ongoing basis and being very engaged to define the future. Sometimes you want to be lightly engaged with a project, and then you want to be super committed and really be the one contributing to that future along specific users. And that's why DAOs are also evolving. They have more flexibility into the definition of the roles of the voters, the capacity to delegate the vote by staking, or the fact that there's, for example, voting by staking instead of spending the token to vote, etc. So a new mechanism where to facilitate the expression of the freedom to decide and participate in the governance of those protocol, that services, etc. behind. I don't think the open metaverse should be run by centralized companies. So it's important as well that those DAOs can be also shaped by the communities themselves. And it's not necessarily just one that's organized by the platform running it, but they will take shape. They will self-organized as well, just like in the very nature of the decentralization.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And in terms of, like Sandbox specifically, what is next for you guys? I know you're building a marketplace for NFTs, which is coming soon. So what's happening there? Yeah, just a bit an idea of what's next for you guys.
We've already accomplished some major milestone with releasing different beta products, the NFT creator with VoxEdit, the game maker in beta. The marketplace is indeed our next coming soon platform, where we are working to open it progressively in different phases. We'll start by curating content that will be made available for users to purchase. We have about 46 artists that have been selected, that we've been working for close to a year for some of them, creating a content that will be featured into 4 main categories: entities for game asset, art as well, like art, but not just 2D images or videos, art made with Vox Edits, that's going to be quite unique, wearable and equipment. All of that will have its utility in Sandbox. And we will be selling when the marketplace is opening within a few weeks to the version. We'll be selling this assets. So the artist will be receiving 195% of the revenue generated directly into their wallet. We only get 5% as a transaction fee being the platform. And then we'll keep featuring more artists, creating more content until we believe that the marketplace could be just open to anyone, because we've set the standard of quality, the expectation of quality that will define also what you can find in Sandbox as a virtual world, and how creators can encourage other creators to create amazing stuff on the platform. After the marketplace, we'll continue to advance on our roadmap with new game maker release, adding more templates for creators to build content on their land. We'll continue to open progressively our map, where we'll be selling through land sales, public waves of land sales, more lands to the public, announcing major IPs, major partners as well. And we'll be launching the first pre-season 0, which is in public alpha version that will enable everyone to participate, play in the multiplayer hub, and for some users to access the first pre-season, where they will be able also to taste play to earn, the first implementation of play to earn in Sandbox, and claim NFTs and token as a reward of their engagement and participating into this season event.
Nice, that's super interesting. The play to earn with NFT rewards. And going back to your marketplace, just whilst you were speaking, I had a question. So for now, the platform is curated, so you're accepting artists in, and then the future will be kind of an open marketplace, correct?
That's correct. That we're receiving a lot. We have already hundreds of artists working with us. You can see part of the content they made directly on the website. Not all of it will be available for sale at the beginning. We're still going to select what we think is the most representative, most potential, most interesting for the gameplay, for the collectors in case of art, what can really be a good showcase of the potential of what can be made on Sandbox platform by those talented creators. And then we'll continue on a weekly basis. We might run some sales, including NFTs from IPs and brand as well, etc. I will not reveal everything yet, but it's what we've prepared is quite cool.
Nice. And I know that you've obviously been in the blockchain and in the space for a long time. So I was wondering if you can share a little bit about your experience as a collector, and what gives value and what you look for in the pieces and in the arts that you collect as well.
Well, I've I'm driven by passion, basically. So I see something I like, I get interested into the artist profile. What's the story behind? How did his or her art came to birth? Like why this piece is important, and that's where I tend to follow someone. I like also to follow artists over a long term to see also how they get discovered, how they evolve themselves in terms of creation. One of my objective is to convince some of them also to start making 3D voxel based art on the platform, so they can create both 2D art, CG, free or 3D CGI, animation, images, GIF, PNGs, but also potentially turn that art into game element that then will be brought to life into a virtual world like the Sandbox. We also in Sandbox going to incorporate a feature where you can import external NFTs and display them in your land. So you can then build a gallery showcasing the crypto art you've acquired, or even crypto art from the artist you like if you were not able to acquire it, and showcasing it, curating yourself, etc.
Nice. And when you think about like virtual land and the metaverse in general, like where do you see the future of it? Like what do do you see the a lot of the physical world like coming into the digital bar virtual world? Like what are your thoughts on that?
I have no specific opinion. Like I think we should be quite open. Like this is a world of opportunity for both existing artists who've been doing it for many years. There is new artists who are coming in, discovering NFT for the first time, specifically as it's been now that about 2 months that NFTs have really came to the mass media, being featured in the press, etc. So it's great that it's part also of like being a growing industry. You have the original creators, etc., but you also now have suddenly very talented people who didn't know that NFT existed before and get interested into this technology and how they can best use it. And so we are just going to start seeing now in the coming days, weeks, and months the potential of it. What I think is important though for the new artists, the new people entering and starting to make NFTs, including potentially celebrities, brands, is also to think on a long-term basis. Like, what is this NFT going to be contributing to the community if they buy it now, and what does it mean for the months and years to come? So I really encourage those new artists, those new entrants to be building for the future, building content that will last for decades with this idea in mind, to bring value, real value to their fans, to the existing users or the new users who discover it. If it's just bringing NFTs with a quick sale in mind, I think that's detrimental to the industry in general, to the market in general, to the users, and it goes against the spirit that NFTs have been really what the industry has been pushing with NFTs so far.
Yeah, that's actually a very interesting concept, and I kind of want to, like, if I can, I want to dig a bit deeper in it, because obviously you mentioned the word value, right? And it's like, I guess, like, what is value? So how can we, like, an artist coming into the space, you said making sure that they bring value. So how do we define value? I guess, like, in this space, there's a lot of attention maybe on the monetary side, as you said. And the rankings and like sales is very it's very, it's what you see the most. So how would you define value, and how would you recommend for an artist to build for the long term?
Definitely, the media is always here trying to catch the big number. So they show only one facet of the NFT industry. Yes, top ranking sale, highest price, this artist sold for 69 million, etc. what they don't show, it's only the tip of the iceberg. What they don't show is like the amount of work, the fact that those artists build a community and a long, trustful relationship with their fan and with their community. And that's how that notion of value, in my opinion, has been developed. If I take the example of a personal example, what has value to me doesn't necessarily need to be something that has value for others. It can be sentimental value. So something that belonged to my grandmother, for example, I have this sentimental attachment because it's my family, but it's only because it's my grandmother. Like to anyone else, it would be a worthless object. For some people, the provenance or the proof of the ownership is also a way to identify the value. This was owned before by a certain celebrity. This was owned before by a person that I can relate to, I've been following to. I will grant more value to this than the same object, the same NFT that was not owned by anyone else before. There's obviously the argument of just the financial value. Like I bought this NFT now for $100 or one ETH. Maybe in 1 year, it becomes 10 ETH. But what justifies that increase in value? It will not come all by itself. It will come because the artist has worked on developing his community, has been consistent into delivering work, piece of art that meets a certain market, that meets what the fans, what his buyers are awaiting from him in a way. And sometimes I think like it's a bit ambiguous, but when users buy NFTs from an artist, it creates a bond between the two of them, like this relationship. But this is no longer an invisible bond. It used to be when you buy an art at an art gallery, you don't really know who bought it, etc. Here on the blockchain, people are very not only vocal, but also they tend to try to get, the community is very friendly. So whenever someone buys an NFT from you, they do it as a way to engage a conversation with you. They want to learn more from you. They value your stories, they value your aesthetics, they value maybe your values as well, in a way. And that's how I think it's really unique in a way. And I love to think like NFTs are first community creators, community bonders. And that's worth for lands as well in the sandbox. That's going to be true for game assets, like all the users who own that gold sword, well, there's only 10 copies. There's very few. They belong to that small group. And ultimately, because they belong to that small group, they are going to connect with each other, talk with each other. They like to automatically know who are the other holders, because online, in the internet, what defines our identity? It's essentially what we own and how we look. So what you bought as an NFT is also going to now, but for the next decade, is going to define who you truly are. If because you bought that Moni Alota, you bought that Trevor Jones, or you bought that Beeple 2 years ago, I can tell you're an early adopter. You've been there before the others. And I can trust by that, well, if you understood the value of that artist at the beginning, it means that you have good taste. You've been probably one of the few that contributed to grow his reputation, help spread the word about it. So that tells me you're a person I want to be connected with. I want to be part of the community with people who are like this, like-minded. And I think that's really unique as well through the NFT industry, specifically in the field of art, sport collectible, and gaming assets more.
Yeah, that's very interesting actually. And I guess like when you were talking, I also thought about, for example, like CryptoPunks, or the early kind of like projects that built CryptoKitties, like that built a really big community around them. So much that everybody has their profile picture as a.
CryptoPunks have the history behind them, but they've been smart in how they've creating those social accounts and how like showing the punks you own is also in a way like defining who you are. You're part of that group of people who were early in the space. That's also true for like if you own an avatar, for example. Those are fully on-chain NFTs with this idea that even it will exist forever. Like there's no centralized server where any data is stored, even on IPFS, for example. And all the community of the early adopter of those avatars, they are strong believer into that full decentralization, fully on-chain element. So by owning one, somehow it's like telling the rest of the world, yes, I think like you, I believe into that. I'm a maximalist into that direction. And that's also again back to like how do we define our identity, the groups we want to be part of online. Now we still do it on social media like Twitter. We're having this on Zoom or Twitter Live. But when you're going to be into 3D virtual world, and then part of the metaverse, which several virtual world will be layers of, you will be able to showcase those. You will be able to, people will see your 3D avatar, EVR or just in 3D through, well, those communities you belong to, through those assets those NFT assets that you bought, and look at that history to really define who you are and if they want to be close to you or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's really interesting. And actually on this, you mentioned the on-chain piece. I've had some conversations about it, and I know there's a lot of talk around, what is on chain, what isn't on chain. And I guess, even for new people coming into the space, like maybe you don't know, like I didn't know exactly what on chain meant up until, a few weeks ago, maybe even less. What is your thought on like on-chain projects versus, let's say, partially on-chain or even not on-chain at all? And I guess, how do you value those? Is this like a determinant factor as well for you?
I think everyone has more or less personal acceptance toward a content they buy, can be or not fully on-chain. But the argument that it is fully on-chain resonates strongly. Personally, it resonates much strongly. And that's why what things like CryptoPunks are going to have an everlasting value. Like nothing can delete or wipe them from the surface of the earth. They are here to stay forever on the blockchain, accessible at any time. Things like in Sandbox, I said that use IPFS, they are on chain, but still, if one day IPFS disappears, which we hope not, but who knows, the content might be harder to retrieve. I do believe that IPFS is a very strong and solid decentralized protocol. I'm not personally worried, but some people might be more. So it really depends on, for you, if like the narrative that when you get an NFT, the narrative that appeals you the most is about the ownership, about the potential monetary value, or really the idea that this is a content that will exist forever and is indestructible. And if you compare like to real art, Mona Lisa, there's only one, but if something happens to it, it will be disappeared forever from the surface of the earth. Whereas, well, fully on chain, it's here to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually have somebody that asked us a question, so I'm going to ask you if that's okay.
Sure.
They ask, will Atari token be incorporated into the Sandbox game?
So the Sandbox game is a game platform that will be that features many games. We have 166, 464 lands in total. Every landowner can publish their game experience. The Atari token will be a token that can be used inside the Atari experiences. And you can also use the Atari token outside of the Sandbox, for example, to buy some asset on OpenSea, etc. So each token has different utility purpose. On the Sandbox platform, Sand is the main utility token, but we are considering enabling creators to make their own currency potentially within the game. That could be something like coming down on a long-term basis, participating to the monetization. And the Atari token naturally will be in the Atari games, obviously, as part of it.
Nice. So we got the answer to that question. I had maybe like one last question from my side, if that's okay. And it's regarding the metaverse. So what are your future, actually two questions, sorry. First is what do you think will be the next big kind of like NFT industry to pop? So we obviously seen art, it's there, it's here to stay. We have the mass media in it. Where do you see it going next?
I think, like as I mentioned, the three main categories: art, sport collectible, gaming, and virtual world. They are definitely here to stay, and they will become more and more visible. There's still 2 billion, 3 billion people who haven't really discovered about those NFTs. Like it's still a few millions only around right now. So the potential is enormous. I think NFT in music is an interesting thing that we've seen several artists and celebrity use, but they are still they are audio and video, so they always come back to that visual element as well. Like they are not just pure audio only experience. If not, like it will be less visible. It's harder to display them on marketplaces, etc. So it makes sense to combine both. Gaming assets definitely is still like there's so few games yet that use NFTs, that use blockchain for the potential of their users, whereas there's hundreds of million games on traditional platform, mobile, tablet, PC and game, PC stores, that if you bring those kind of game to embrace the idea of NFT, to embrace the idea of opening their economy and their asset as NFTs, maybe there will not be the existing game, but there's now more developer working to bring those concepts into their core gameplay. Some call it with building DeFi gaming because there's finance involved to that. But I think it will be just be called game, and it will be just part of the norm of any game with the next decade. And to me, that's more the play to earn model that I hope will not replace the existing, but will become also potentially dominant.
Nice. And I think one last question to close it off. There's like a lot of, you're obviously an expert in the blockchain. There's been a lot of talk about Ethereum and about other potential blockchains, and the kind of like the controversy between the energy consumption, and I'm sure you know about it. What are your thoughts on this? And what is your take?
It's a complicated. I would say it's a more nuanced topic than what the media again tries to make us think. It's not all blue or white, all black. So don't just take the headlines and take it for granted. Unfortunately, there's a lot of manipulation behind, cross interest as well. There are blockchains that are using indeed proof of stake, which is more energy efficient because there's no computation needed behind, and those are indeed more carbon friendly. But even in the blockchain like Ethereum that are proof of work, they are supported to some level, and I'm reading in article it could be as much as 75% with green energy from hydraulic power that comes from source of energy that generate no pollution. So it doesn't sound as bad as people want us to think. But also taken into comparison, it's hard to see, like there's two things that I think shocking. First is to think like, is it more polluting the planet than using your car on daily basis, uses your social media, uploading a lot of art on social media, etc.? No. Is it more polluting than the traditional finance system and how the different resources are being exploited on Earth to be collected. Like the energy you need to take 1 kilogram of diamond or gold from a mine compared to the energy you need to mine a Bitcoin or Ethereum, they are just not on par. And are we going to do something or blame the world about that? Probably not. Is also something like more specifically to the gaming industry. Let's take a look at this past decade in the video game industry. This has been a decade supported by a business model called freemium, free to play, where billions of dollars have been made by sometimes being fair to the users, but most of the time abusing the users on how they are being charged to purchase items, etc. And I tend to think that, again, I'm not going to complain against the company about the system, etc. I'm just asking the people who read those news to be more nuanced before jumping into conclusion, because I think like there's value creation, there's jobs creation happening now more than ever into the ecosystem, into the industry, thanks to NFTs, into the metaverse. New digital jobs are appearing, people building content, creating art, creating games, using lands to develop the new business of tomorrow. And I don't think it's all bad. On the contrary, I tend to believe like whenever people are reticent to something, it means that we are moving in the right direction for most of the time, because people tend to pick the easy choices, and sometimes the easy choices are not the best.
Yeah, that's very interesting to hear, especially from you and from an expert in the blockchain. I think to close it off, you have some compliments from Andy Rich saying that Sandbox is amazing.
Thank you. You're an amazing creator, so thanks for following. I know Andy has been contributing to our game jam. He was one of the winner at some of our game jam. He's been watching the streams that our community of creators are live streaming on Twitch and YouTube to train people to create games. So we are glad to make an impact into people's life. And I think Andy is probably one of those people or of those community members that can testify of like the good that NFTs and the Sandbox and the virtual world have brought to him and made a difference on his personal life.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. It was an amazing talk.
Same way.
Yeah, so thanks a lot. And thank you also to our sponsor this month, which is Wall Street. Thanks. Speak soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.